with AI, we build stuff way too fast because you can almost make perfect software with AI. But you know what? If you haven't started with a deep understanding of the customer jobs, pains, and gains, you're very likely to build the wrong thing. They'll say, oh, but we can build fast to learn. Well, it's like running up the wrong hill. You're going to run up 100 wrong hills, and you're still not going to get a good understanding of the map. Well, what if the first thing you did is you started to really validate your customer understanding? And I mean, going down to a quantitative understanding. They say waiting is a pain. Well, how much? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 7.5 minutes? You need to get quantitative, and you need to have evidence that supports your understanding. You can get that evidence with AI tools. You can run, synthetic interviews. Should still probably talk to real customers, but you can also run really fast experiments with landing pages that were put up by AI. So you can compress the testing, but you need to focus on the customer understanding first.
Thanks as always to Kyndryl, who support the Innovation Show and sponsor book competitions on the Innovation Show. If you sign up for the Kyndryl Institute at kyndryl.com/institute and just send us the screenshot that you've signed up, you will be in with a chance to win a copy of Value Proposition Design by Alexander Osterwalder. It's a pleasure to have them as a sponsor. They're actually pretty cool people, good to work with a unique blend of AI-powered consulting built on unmatched service capability. Kyndryl helps leaders harness the power of technology for smarter decisions, faster innovation, and a lasting competitive edge. You can find Kyndryl at kyndryl.com. Many of us are using generative AI, LLMs, or other types of AI to do tasks that we probably shouldn't be using. But sometimes we're using them to do way too much, sometimes way too little, or sometimes using them for the wrong task at all. One of those is in value proposition design. And many of us may think we can get rid of the entire team and replace them by AI. Not at all the case. We're joined today by a friend of the show. He was with us last week to talk about this idea of retiring projects, which projects to back, how to back them, how to see which metrics count. But today he's to talk to us about the idea of value proposition design in an age of AI. Friend of the show, my own friend, Alexander Osterwalder, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Always a real pleasure to be here.
Great to have you back, man. Absolutely loved last week's episode. I'm just going to hand over the mic to you and take us through what you're seeing and how your customers are changing and what's changing, particularly with this new technology, AI.
Yeah, I like the way you framed it. Like we use too little and too much of AI. We use it often for the wrong things. Now, the big topic that we get asked to work on a lot with our clients is value propositions. Right? Many years after value proposition design, it was actually less popular back then. Today, we get a lot of requests. And a lot of the companies that come to us, they actually mistake, formulating your value proposition for a writing exercise, which it's not. So their AI can actually do a really good job. You give some inputs and they can formulate a value proposition. But in order for AI to do a good job, or GenAI in particular, you need to do some of the homework that you need to have to put into a prompt to get a great formulation for your value proposition, get a great website, great brochure, etc. And I'll go a little bit into that, and I'll show you what our thinking is and how we started to turn that into a playbook. So I'll go back to the foundations of an irresistible value proposition. It's a bit of an evolution, but the same foundations from our book, but we constantly adapt what we do. So the first thing almost sounds trivial. What is the foundation? And everything, starts from there. You do need to have highly relevant customer jobs, pains, and gains that you address. So, with AI, we build stuff way too fast because you can almost make perfect software with AI. But you know what? If you haven't started with a deep understanding of the customer jobs, pains, and gains, you're very likely to build the wrong thing. They'll say, oh, but we can build fast to learn. Well, it's like running up the wrong hill. You're going to run up 100 wrong hills, and you're still not going to get a good understanding of the map. Well, what if the first thing you did is you started to really validate your customer understanding? And I mean going down to a quantitative understanding. They say waiting is a pain. Well, how much? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 7.5 minutes, You need to get quantitative and you need to have evidence that supports your understanding. You can get that evidence with AI tools. You can run synthetic interviews, should still probably talk to real customers, but you can also run really fast experiments with landing pages that were put up by AI. So you can compress the testing, but you need to focus on the customer understanding first. That sounds trivial, but it's not the case for most companies. I can guarantee you, all of my clients, and these are world-class brands, they can't give you the evidence for their quantitative understanding of customers. When I say quantitative, I mean, is it 5 minutes of waiting that is a pain? Is it 10 minutes? Is it an hour? They cannot give you that evidence. And that's the case everywhere. So that's what we need to do first. Seems trivial, but everything starts from there. Then the second one, okay, now we have a good evidence-based understanding of the customer. Now we can start to focus on the benefits. But let's say, well, the benefit of our solution is you're going to save 5 minutes of waiting time. Well, okay, again, show me, what does 5 minutes mean quantitatively for them? If I don't have to make 5 minutes, I'm actually going to be able to sell more. I'm going to make 10 million more revenue from my sales force over the next 6 months. And then you show the evidence that for a majority of your clients, that is the case. So before you even build something, you start to show the evidence that you have an understanding which benefits do they really care about. So that's number one. Number two, of your value proposition. Okay, well, now we have an idea of what could go into the value proposition, but there's something else. Well, everybody wants to focus on differentiation. Okay, good, but show me the evidence that your focus of differentiation actually matters to customers. So again, here's how I intend to differentiate, and here is the proof that my customers actually care about that differentiation. So think of how many companies look at competitors, differentiate based on other solutions, and they never even talk to customers if customers care. So they differentiate compared to competitors rather than testing through the eyes, the lens, the glasses of the customer. Okay, so that's the third one. And then let's get to the last one. Now I formulate a clear and simple value proposition with a sentence or an image or whatever. I also need to go and test that. So 4 components of an irresistible value proposition. And I can guarantee you, if you have these ingredients, you will succeed. Now, let me kind of just show you how this looks like in a process view. So we did this last week, right? Where you go from opportunity to launching in the market, and then hopefully you can have a value proposition that succeeds. So what you really want is that we gradually go through that thinking of the value proposition. I'll call it develop and formulate. Includes, there's 2 phases if you want. Developing is product management, product development, and formulating is turning that into a marketing message. You need to test and iterate all the time. So you go through this double loop again and again and again until you actually hit the nail and you have something that really resonates with customers. So that is, I get out of the way again here, that is a step-by-step process. So we built this playbook for a large industrial tech company, and they're going to roll it out to 1,000 product owners. So the first thing they do is they map out a business model canvas, more for the context, but then they map out the customer profile. But here what's important is they also need to show the evidence that they understand the customer, from an evidence point of view. They talked to enough, they ran experiments. Then they go to what we call value stack. That's a new tool that we created because we saw that the tools we had weren't good enough. But it basically, in a more analytical sense, allows you to prioritize which benefits matter most to customers. So we talk about the solution. Then you do the same for differentiation, and you show the evidence. And then the next one is willingness to pay. Now, this is what I'll call the ingredients. This is stuff we need to do. It's the homework of a product owner or a marketing team. Once you have made these ingredients, Now you can formulate a brochure. You can formulate a one-pager. You can formulate a marketing campaign, because with AI, you can now do these things really fast. And here's the key. They're going to be extremely distinct because you have a distinctive customer profile. You have a distinctive solution based on real evidence. Because what companies do too often is they go right to AI to formulate a very lofty, high-level value proposition, and it's going to look the same for every single competitor because they didn't do their homework. When you do the homework, and here you can use AI to test these things faster, but when you do the homework, here is where you're going to get something extremely powerful, and then you iterate. So you'll get the best out of generative AI and iterating at lightning speed because you've done the footwork, the homework to actually create those prompts. And the problem is people don't like work, so they go to a shortcut, so they go right to AI. But the problem is, if you don't give the right data to your favorite AI, what's going to come out is going to be pretty high level. So that's kind of how we look at the world. And I can show you after how we designed a simple playbook for that. But, AI is great, but if you don't use it the right way, you're going to get stuff that doesn't actually reflect a customer's, value proposition, and it's not distinctive enough, right? So how many of these marketing messages sound the same? Worse, even they'll use buzzwords because, you have to train AI to actually use simple language. But if you use it right, it's rocket fuel because you can really go much, much faster, but you need to put the right things in place. I get super excited about this, as you can tell, because the opportunity is amazing.
I was talking to a leader from a big confectionery company recently. He was telling me that if you think about this, like you have a secret formula of a product you've created over many, many years, and now all of a sudden along comes, say, an enterprise AI offer, like a Microsoft or somebody like that. And there's this question of like, do I put my data in there? Do I put the secret formula in there? And the whole idea of, if I do that, am I going to be used as training data? And the other thing is, if somebody else comes along and just goes, here, make me a product, it's going to draw on that content that it's already there. Even though maybe, the whole idea of the terms and conditions that we all sign without really reading them all. What I have to tell you now, what I do is I actually put it into AI and go, what is there anything to watch out here for? But of course, that's the AI giving me that work again. So it's just a real dilemma. And I wondered if you had any thoughts about that, or if you have any clients kind of pondering such dilemmas.
Yeah. So two answers to that. The first one is a kind of very logical one. And there are ways today that you have open source AI that you can use and you can run it on your own servers and is not going to go anywhere, right? So that is possible today. And you don't necessarily need, the edge models to do this kind of work. So if you're working on, the next protein for your pharmaceutical company, you need cutting edge AI. You need the most advanced models. But to formulate a value proposition, you can actually play it really safe with models that are not cutting edge. That's number one, right? So there are ways today for this kind of stuff to use AI that will not share with the entire world. Now, the second one is, well, does it really matter that much? Because like the key of a value proposition is a product per se and the product features do not create value in an absolute sense. It's for a specific customer segment that a product will create value or not. So every company is so unique in terms of which customers are they going after, what are their solutions good at, that you can train models. There's no model that's going to come up today, at least, that's going to come up with the perfect value proposition for your competitor based on what you said. That's a fear that I believe is irrational because it's very unique. And today AI cannot on its own come up with a great value proposition. That's what I'm going back to. ask, like for this customer segment, design the best value proposition. That's not going to work. What you actually need to do is you could use AI to start to do market research. Which one is the most, the best growing segment? Then you define in that segment customers. You still need to go and test the jobs, pains, and gains. So it's going to be so unique that even if you trained an AI based on your solution, it's going to mean nothing. It's not going to be usable by competitors in any way. So not today, right? So today we believe AI is going to give you the solution. It will not. With the right ingredients, it will give you the solution. The human in the loop and the uniqueness of what you're pursuing is still today. We don't know for how long. Is it a year? Is it 2 years? But today, and for the foreseeable future, AI will not give you the solution per se. You need to do that homework. And I can tell you, I did try, and I do have a lot of, colleagues working in this space with AI and advanced AI agents. Today, it's not possible. So I think the fear today, short term, is overstated. Longer term, it could be a different story.
It reminds me of the quote by Henry Ford. If I asked AI what my customer wanted, it would have said a faster horse. And it would have told me how great I was for thinking of it.
So the problem is we overestimate and underestimate AI or GenAI. So AI is pretty good at some tools, pattern recognition, all that kind of stuff. Definitely world-class on formulating value propositions if you give it the right ingredients. So I'd be less worried about the copying aspect. I'd be more worried about, are we using AI to its max? Because I still see today marketing teams that spend time on wordsmithing. Well, are you serious? Today, your websites, your brochures should be constant iterations with AI. You shouldn't be writing a word. Like, you should be giving ingredients, meaning, so this is actually a good segue. Let me show you how we do it with our playbooks, because it's actually a pretty powerful way of working, right? So we say, okay, we created this thing. It's very simple. It's very delimited to, we call this thing strong value propositions and differentiation with GenAI. How do you use AI, your favorite AI tool, to create value propositions as a sentence, as a landing page? Well, first you need a product description. Then you actually need, the analytical point of view, customer jobs, pains, and gains, and the value proposition. And then you need a favorite AI. What you do is, here's again, it's kind of more formulated in a playbook sense of way, and I'll show you how it looks like. First, what you do is the homework, and this is what playbook focuses on. How do I describe my customer that I'm targeting on, jobs, pains, and gains? How do I test those jobs, pains, and gains? Okay, once I have that, I have a validated customer profile. That's an ingredient. Next ingredient, how do I come up with the benefits? How do I test those benefits? Are those really things that people want? Okay, now I have validated benefits. Now all I need to do is super powerful. I take a neutral product description. I take a screenshot of my customer profile. I take a screenshot of my value proposition. I throw that into an AI, and I have a prompt, and out comes whatever, description, landing page that you want. So it's really about the ingredients more than anything else, right? So if I kind of show you that, I don't like to be salesy, but I got to show this, right? Because it's pretty cool, and I know you'll be down with it. So I'm going to show you how this looks like. I showed you the playbook library. You get access to all these playbooks. Here's one called Strong Value Proposition and Differentiation with GenAI. So all of the steps that work you through, how do I formulate a customer profile? How do I test the customer profile? Everything that I just show you on a slide, we show you how to do it. But then this is the cool thing with playbooks. You have workspaces where you actually do it. So this one says, map your customer understanding. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. If I click on this, after watching a couple of videos, it shows me how to map out my customer ecosystem in a visual workspace with sticky notes, how to pick the most important customer that I need to focus on, and then how to map out a customer profile. So these are all of the things that we discovered teams are not good at. So if you're in B2B, let's say you're selling whatever, jet engines. So you know what? You actually have several customers, users, influencers, channel partners for whom you need to have a value proposition. So once you map all of those out, then you ask, which ones are going to be the most important in the decision making? You know what? Teams mostly focus on the users, but the users rarely make the decisions in B2B. So all of their value proposition is going to be around the user rather than the decision maker. So what we do in these playbooks is just guide people through the right steps so they can do it on their own. So now when we work in a B2B context, we can custom design those playbooks based on their needs. But what we try to do, because we're passionate about it, we take everything we learn in the best and biggest companies and we share it in our public playbook library so everybody can get access. So what I showed you, formulate your value proposition with GenAI, is accessible to everybody. And it benefits from those projects we do with some of the strongest brands. And for all of your listeners, you know what? The best and biggest brands are not getting the basics right either. So they need to remember, we need to go back to the customer. We need to test and validate the customer jobs, pains, and gains are the problem. That's the ingredient, the marketing ingredient we then use for AI. So what's astonishing is that these best brands on the planet are not further than the small and medium-sized company. Now, the advantage for smaller companies is your decision path is much smaller, so you can put this stuff in place right away. All you need is the playbook. So I think it's a huge opportunity. With AI, we're going to see a lot of cool new value propositions emerge. Some are just formulations of products without AI, and some are going to be new products and services with AI embedded, right? So it's an amazing space that's going on. It's like the age of innovation and entrepreneurship.
And Alex has kindly given us, for the Innovation Show audience as well, Innovation Show 20. If you put that into the coupon code on the Strategyzer website, you'll get 20% off on that site. And also, I'm going to link to it where you can find out more about that content. Alex, one more question, because I know you're doing a webinar with friend of the show, former guest, Tende Vicky, your friend and collaborator with Strategyzer. Maybe you'll tell us a little bit about that as well. But just, I was thinking here about, say, that there's a regular listener to the show, a guy called Corey Rollins. Shout out to you, Corey. And he's building a prototype. He's built it, a prototype pillow for people who get like numbness in their fingers. And, you know, we've all had this cold feet and vertigo type symptoms. And I was telling him about your work. So say somebody like him, how does he, somebody who has an idea, somebody at home who's just kind of going, I have this idea. How do they get started with this?
So remember, I was differentiating between product development and value proposition formulation. So, and this is actually, for everybody, but like with the big client I'm working with right now, we distinguish these two phases because in both phases, you need to test and iterate, but you don't test and iterate the same thing. So when you have an idea, well, guess what? You should go through that process of first, validating customer needs, jobs, pains, and gains, validating the benefits, validating the differentiation before actually working on the details of your product. So the problem is people go too fast towards a prototype before having a deep understanding of the priorities, right? So that would be if your product is just an idea. But now the big challenge is, and I'll tell you, Strategyzer is not good at that either. So we're doing this for ourselves as well, is you have a product that works. You actually know that people like it, but you haven't formulated it in the right way that resonates. So what you actually need to do is you go a little bit further, and this is much faster. That's the cool part. Your product exists. It kind of creates value. But then you still need to have validated jobs, pains, and gains, validated benefits, validated differentiators that you take and you feed into AI. And here's the key. Now you would come up with 3 alternatives. And in the market, you test the 3 alternatives, one that emphasizes this feature, one that emphasizes that feature, and one that emphasizes the third feature. Or it could be the pricing. So then you do so-called ABC test. So there are different types of things you test in different phases, from product development all the way to marketing messages. So if that pillow exists, now your task is to, if you don't have the price yet, you got to test actually the pricing, but you also want to test the differentiation that you put on the website. And that should not be a logical conversation. It should be evidence-based, evidence from product development and evidence from conversion rates. So if I have 3 websites and the only thing that I change is the differentiator of the product, and I see, very strong conversion rate differences, I already know this message resonates more than this one. So these are the kinds of things you test your messaging even. And that's not that hard once you know how the playbook works like. But we tend to overthink and under-experiment. Corporations even worse. Like, they will think for ages and business cases, but even entrepreneurs, they tend to overthink and under-experiment. So get started with the right experiment depending on where you are in your project. And this sounds like the project exists, right, with the pillow.
It sure does, but it's so interesting. I was thinking about the parallels between what we talked about on retiring business ideas last week, because this is a discipline again. Like, people think about entrepreneurship and innovation roles as creative roles. They are, but there's a huge science now and a discipline, and it's actually the discipline that carries you through. The analogy I have, and I know you're big into your own fitness and health, is the same thing, is that you can't outsource that. You can be healthy, but you still have to show up, not eat that thing, go to the
Yep.
gym, make sacrifices, have only one beer, all that kind of stuff that makes a huge thing. And it's the exact same. It's a discipline to get to the end,
Yeah.
and the creativity is not enough.
And I love that. Let me take that, and I'll tell you, we did a pitch for a big company probably like 2-3 months ago. And it was just the season of Roland Garros, and they were looking at training, and we were pitching the playbooks, and we kind of had to tell them, like, why do we need playbooks in another platform? And then I took that sports analogy and I said, okay, well, you know what? Roger Federer, he was pretty good. He won Roland Garros. I don't remember which year. So think of it this way. If we did e-learning to teach you how to become a Roger Federer, we wouldn't go very far, right? Because we would show you videos of how to hold the racket, and then we would ask you, is Roger Federer holding the racket right? And we'd think that's going to change the behavior. That's not going to happen. But now think of it this way. So Roger Federer had a youth coach who unfortunately passed away in the middle of his career. But imagine if you had the playbook of how that coach trained Roger Federer, videos to show, so you do need to see that. But instead of then filling out, like a multiple choice, how you hold the racket, what if it got you to play that move right away? So the sports thing is the same thing. You cannot become really healthy if we're talking amateur sports, or you can't become a world-class athlete by watching videos. Does it mean you're not going to watch videos? Of course not. Roger Federer, watched hours and hours of training videos. But it's the combination between learning, visualizing, theory, and practice. And today, I don't think we're doing that well enough. So a lot of good content out there, books and, tools. But at the end of the day, it's how do we get to that outcome? And you get to the outcome by learn, do, learn, do. Another profession that's good at that is medicine. So you're not going to become a surgeon by reading books. Do you need to read a lot of books and understand anatomy and all of that? You bet. But it's also practice. So I think in business, we underestimate that this is a profession that requires you to learn and watch videos, but it also requires you to apply. And again, in our case, we figured out a really kind of efficient way with the playbook. So I'm excited about it. That's why I want to get this out there, because I do want people to change, because the way we do things today is not fully professional when it gets to growth. I think we're world-class at running companies for some aspects, supply chains. But when it comes to growth initiatives, we're kind of acting as if, it was just a creative thing. And if you're creative enough, you're going to come up with great value propositions. You nailed it when you said, this is a profession, and professions you learn. Now, because we don't have enough time, we need a very efficient, effective way to learn fast. So we can't, do the 6-year internship of a doctor, but we can do things that resemble that, but that are highly effective.
And another way you're teaching people is through webinars as well. I mentioned that one with our friend Tendai. Do you want to share a little bit about that, and then we'll land the ship today?
Well, what dawned on us at one point is that we're known for content and tools, and we're seen as a consulting company. But then we realized, well, our most powerful thing is Playbook. So all of our webinars are now showcasing playbooks. How do you actually apply this? And with Tendai has done a lot of projects where he calls this his party trick, where a company brings him in and then they ask him, assess if this is a good project or not. Now, he knows that you can't analytically, just by looking at it, say it's a good project or not. But there is a technique, and that's what we talked about together in our last show, right? You can assess the evidence. So what we're going to do in the next webinar is we're going to show you with a real project, how can I apply this playbook to assess the evidence that will show me if this is a project that should be retired or if this is a project that we should invest in? Because it's possible, right? So you just need to know why. So we're super excited about showing these techniques down to, here's not the theory, here's actually how you apply it so you get the same outcome that we get, when we work with clients. And Tendai does this a lot with clients, assessing, projects, and he calls it a party trick. So we're going to reveal the party trick if you want.
Brilliant. And you can find that at strategyzer.com/events/business-idea-evaluation. And I'll put that in the show links as well. It's always a pleasure, man. I look forward to the next in our Strategyzer series as well. Friend of the show, author of those who are watching us, all those books behind me. And I should have actually taken it. I have Biz for Kids. Where is it?
One of my favorite ones.
I told them, yeah. Biz for Kids. Biz for Kids is there as well. Signed. I have a special signed copy as well from Alex. Alexander Osterwalder, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Keep up the great work, my friend.
With a unique blend of AI-powered consulting built on unmatched managed service capability, Kyndryl helps leaders harness the power of technology for smarter decisions, faster innovation, and a lasting competitive edge. You can find Kyndryl and the Kyndryl Institute at kyndryl.com.